Alright, everybody. So welcome back to uh the card game. Um welcome. This is gonna be our first devlog. I didn't really think I was gonna make any of these, but I feel like we made such massive strides since that first video I initially released that it felt necessary to kind of make a video talking about it and documenting it. So last time I believe we left off at like the 3 lane system. Uh you can see here I have one out already. Um And something that we really ironed out today, or not today, but like since the last video, was turnover. So you can see here we have player A and player B on the 3 lane system, and something that was a really big issue for us when we were talking about this was that first turn bias, and we were trying to find a way to circumvent first turn bias. So first turn bias is when the player going first has the advantage, um, either because they get to attack first or they get to like perform actions first. Um, you kind of see this in chess, where like white is generally considered better than black. In chess specifically. Um, in like Magic the Gathering, where I think player two gets an extra card when they draw. And like Legend of Runeterra and Hearthstone as well, right? So, um, we spent a lot of time trying to circumvent this issue, and after a lot of discussion, we decided that our game does not feature significant first turn bias. Now, we can't actually know this as a fact until we have some playtesting. But first turn bias generally, from what we've discussed, comes from like player B not being able to defend against player A and stuff like that, and player A is having like free ins that player B does not get, right? And I think our game really circumvents that by having the lane system. So by having the lane system, let's say player A goes first, right? Player A plays a card right here, right? And now they want to attack with this card. Because of a lane system, player A can only attack down this lane. So even though player A went first and he's attacking first, player B can really put his cards anywhere. Like for example, you can put a card here and ignore the attack, and during combat phase, they attack together basically. Right? I guess yeah, that's also part of like how we are circumventing the first turn bias. Um, and I understand that like player A could be at a slight disadvantage here because player A places first and player B has a reactive player B's turn is now reactive to player A. So then, whatever player A does, they can basically counter that by, let's say, like player B does not want to hit by this attack, plays a stronger card here that does not get one shot by this card, but has an attack stat that can one shot this card on the rebound damage, right, leading to this card being gone and B attacking straight. Uh, but with our system, so where we have A plays cards first, then B plays cards second, and then they attack at the same time, right? Uh, and so by doing this, even though that B is like technically playing reactive to A, it doesn't matter too much that B is moving second. And even though A is being reacted to, it's not that big of an issue because on round one, sure, B is reacting to A, but on round two, their move order swaps, and now A is reacting to B. So while A might be at a slight disadvantage, we don't believe that it's a sizable enough disadvantage to award additional resources. But that may be subject to change in the future because we have no play testing, right? Also, from the last from the first video, I believe in the first video we had a total of I think 47 cards. We currently have I think 68. Right? So we made a very large leap in our card number, and we're actually very close to our target number of 80, which is very very cool. Um, Something we realized while we were making these cards, of course, was terminology. Terminology, right? Terminology. And what I mean by terminology is like, for example, in Legend of Runeterra, for example, uh, there are effects such as. Oh, let me find something. There are effects such as, for example, some units have this thing called Challenger, right? Challenger. And what Challenger does in Legend of Terra is that a unit with this trait forces um, like are able to choose a character to block them. So in LOR, basically character fights character, and the enemy team can place a character here to block this character. Right? And Challenger, and they get to pick what character to block, right? But Challenger lets this person pick who he wants to block him. Um, and so instead of typing out like this character can pick who defends against them every single time, they simply put Challenger as their trait and call it a day, and it's much faster. And as we've created more cards, we've realized that we also have this need for terminology. We have a lot of cards, and some of them have similar functions because they are similar to each other, right? And it's just like things like this are just like things you just have, right? So um, we will also be establishing our own terminology that will develop as we move on with the game. Currently, we have just one because we haven't really been paying that much attention to it. It's called Inhibited. Just a quick little teaser on what we're doing. And basically, if a character is inhibited, its passive is disabled. All right, pretty simple. All right. What else have we done? Okay, so last time I mentioned 4 varieties of cards. We have spell cards, field cards, unit cards, and champion cards, right? And while spell field, and unit cards we think are in a generally good spot, we've noticed that champion cards don't really fit the theme we're going, especially since the majority of these, almost all of these, were made before the 3-lane system was developed, right? So a lot of them don't actually make that much sense. So moving forward, we do look to probably revamp all of the champion cards as well as some of the older unit and spell cards, right? Okay. And finally, um, yeah, that's basically it. I think as we've made newer cards since the first video, we've developed a different style almost of card creation, and we're working to number one, avoid power creep, uh, but also number two, make everything cohesive. Right? So, for example, a lot of our old cards tend to give you cards. Right? A lot of our older cards gave you cards, and that was a system that personally, because most of the older cards were created solely by me, whereas our newer cards have like a team behind them now. And I really like that system, but as we're moving on, we have less of that and more of like stat buy stuff and things that affect other champions rather than just giving cards, right? And so a lot of this does need to be modernized into our new system. We do also have almost a pretty established team working on this game. So I'm hopefully expecting an initial like base to be built hopefully by like I want to say hopefully by um the end of winter break. I don't know how feasible this is gonna be because I do know we all have call drafts right now. But that's just because I'm that's just like what I'm seeing as a possibility. Because this is just gonna be like a base of the game, a bare bones version. No, nothing complicated. Just like I can put down a card. Amazing, you know. And yeah, so that's everything that's happened since the last one. I feel like it may not sound like much, but it's really felt like massive strides since our first video. Instead of a short amount of time, I think it's only been like a day or 2 days, and you might think this is kind of rushed, but it does feel like we made pretty large strides, establishing basically all of our game rules at this point um, right now. So yeah, so thanks for watching. Uh, like and subscribe to support the channel and the game. Bye bye.